Yeah, that's always the weird thing where, people demand a lot for acting as far as diving into your emotions, but then it's like, we need you to turn on a dime, please. All
Yeah.
right.
It's in my early 20s. It was hard because I was just looking for a place to put a lot of grief that I had swallowed as an adolescent, and I thought the prize of the day went to the one who could touch and share the grief the most. But that turned out not to be true, and I'm just glad to be older than that now.
It's it sucks getting older, sure, whatever, but it's also nice being I know stuff that I didn't know. Welcome, everybody, to the podcast, Casting for Two, as always, hosted by me, Chris. Welcome, everybody. This is episode number 353. Again, loving this new intro layout that I got going on. Of course, if you would like to keep up with everything that I'm doing online on the social medias, you can always do that, Casting for Two, both Instagram and Twitter. And however you're listening to this podcast on any of the popular services, feel free to give me a review. I'd really appreciate that. But yeah, and so wonderful episode today. I talked with a fantastic actor. His name's Erik Liberman, and his most recent project is the Transparent Musicale Finale, and that's available on Amazon Prime, and everyone should just go check that out. But I gotta say, Erik is a very insightful person, and the chat we had was one of the most different kind of interviews I've done in a really long time. I don't want to say ever, because I feel like that's a big assumption, but it was very, very insightful, and I appreciate Erik for going there, and it was great. It was a great change of pace, and I think this is a really great episode. But you know what? I'm done talking. We got to get into this episode, all right? So everybody sit back, relax, and Erik, take it away. But yeah, so this is a loose show where we can chat about anything and everything.
Great.
But I'm more interested in finding out who you are as a person, what makes you tick. So that's why I always ask this first question, because it tells me everything I need to know about you, but no pressure. How much sleep do you get?
What a wonderful question. I think I get just enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. It must range between 6 and a really dreamy day, 8 hours.
Okay.
But those 8 hours are hard won, I have to say. This morning, for example, I woke up with the sun, which I pretty much do in any city that I'm in. So it's really more of a question of when do I go to sleep.
Gotcha. Yeah. What time is the norm, I guess?
I aim for 11.
Okay.
But usually, if there's a good book nearby, I'm pushing it closer to 12.
Yeah. I feel like, me personally, like 12 is a good time to go to sleep for me. And yes, I too am up with the sun, which annoys me because I wish I could just have a blacked out room. I'm a pretty light sleeper, so any kind of light or noise that I hear, like, I'm up. That's it.
Yeah. New York has been really hard for me to sleep in lately. LA's easier, but I actually love waking up with the light because things are so fresh and everyone's not hooked into their agenda yet. It's just like flowing with the opening of things.
And so, where are you originally from?
I'm from Coconut Grove, Florida,
Oh,
which
okay.
is, yeah, a little neighborhood inside of Miami.
Okay.
Very tropical. It was very idyllic when I was there. Beautiful colors, great trees,
Mm-hmm.
amazing flowers. It was a special place.
And then, so when do you go? Because you went from there to New York, or
Yeah, you mean,
it,
well, I divided time growing up between there and my father moved to Colorado and then to
mm,
Hawaii. So I spent some time there in the summers and holidays, and I moved straight from Miami to New York when I was 18.
mm-hmm.
And I did that for about a year and a half. And then I ended up moving to Los Angeles, actually. I did some training programs overseas, and then I landed in LA and roughed it, met my great teacher mentors, cut my teeth out in the professional world as an actor,
Mm-hmm.
and did a lot of survival jobs to really uncover who I am
Mm-hmm.
and what I'm made of. And then LA led me actually back to New York for years. And then last year, I came and started spending more time in LA again because a project I was working on, Transparent, was shooting and workshopping out here, and I've been writing a book out here. So I used to think I had to be allegiant to one or the other, but I realized
Right.
they're like the sun and the moon. And sometimes you need reflection, and sometimes you need bright, scalding light.
Exactly. I'm always interested because I haven't been to New York, but
Oh,
the West Coast. I grew up in Oregon.
I love Oregon.
Oh my gosh! No, you talk about green and flowers and stuff like that. And I'm like, yeah, I miss that.
Yeah.
Um, but I just always wonder if there's you personally as an actor. Do you feel like, you know what, when I come to New York, this is like my time to act, and this is when you get in kind of a work mode, as far as all the Broadway that goes on over there.
Yeah, New York thrusts you
Hmm.
not just into work mode, but into living mode.
Yeah.
Because it's so immediate. And even if you try to isolate yourself on a phone or whatever, there's just people and noise and scent and objects.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a little bit like a human pinball machine. When I first landed in New York and I was 18, an acting teacher said to me, "Welcome to the city of finalists."
Mm.
And I've remembered that because nobody lands in New York City by accident. Everybody's usually there because they're driven to the leading edge of their desire.
Right.
So it's not a place to hide. It's a place to be agitated towards your greatness. And I look at LA as more of a space for healing and
Mm-hmm.
reflection and, in my case, writing, because uh, I say it in a few ways. I think New York is about locality. LA is about non-locality.
Mm-hmm.
New York has a force about it that pushes you toward the center, and LA pulls you toward the rim.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just a question of what you need, how you're metabolizing life at that particular moment.
And it makes sense. I mean, and obviously there's more space in California, so that
Yeah.
I want to get this writing done, so I'm going to go off and be with my thoughts.
It's very conducive to that. New York is such a concentric city, so your energy overlaps and is overlapped by everybody else, and you, like it or not, are part of a stew or a recipe, which is the meal of New York that day. In LA, I feel like you can disappear and emerge with something, and they both have their merits,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
No, yeah.
And I New York for a little recharge these days. a little pump, what do they call those things that they put on your heart? Boom.
Oh,
Uh,
yeah, defibrillator.
exactly. That's
There
New
you go.
York.
There we go. That's their slogan from now on.
New York, we defibrillate you.
And you mentioned that you're writing a book.
Yeah,
Do you feel that just writing in general has influenced your acting, or vice versa?
absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Because, I mean, the arts are allied.
Mm-hmm.
And as an actor, I think the habit can be myopia. You focus on your track, you focus on what problem you're solving within the larger architecture of the script.
Mm-hmm.
And that's your quest. As a writer, you're looking at the grand architecture of the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so it sort of makes it easier to look at yourself as an actor, as a writer, and not take it as seriously. Not because the task isn't vital, but because there are so many gods you have to serve as a writer.
Right.
And the component of a single character is just an aspect of the fabric of the whole.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I think we can lose sight of that as actors because we can drag personal issues of esteem or visibility into the room, which don't actually belong there.
Mm-hmm.
There's a great acting teacher named Larry Moss, and he says actors fail for one of two reasons: psychology or technique.
Mm.
And I think in most cases it's actually psychology, because in the way that celebrity is framed in our era, the proximity of celebrity through social media platforms and reality television, for instance, people think that becoming exalted by having a platform will somehow solve what's unresolved in your heart. Right. And I think that's just a huge fallacy when it comes to being an artist, because we're actually here to serve. We're not here to draw from as much as I think we sometimes want to, meaning draw from whatever the vehicle is that we are in, mm-hmm. so that it can somehow mitigate an inner turmoil. And as a writer, you just get to say, well, look, I built this whole ecosystem, mm-hmm. and every creature within it plays a part, none more significant than the other. And if we knew that as actors, I think we would align ourselves differently as we approach our work.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
No, it does. It does. No, it's kind of the whole, I don't want to say like the whole like genie thing, that your wishes aren't going to fill what you're missing.
Well, it's I think that writing, there's so much subconscious work that goes into mm-hmm. writing, and the reason that particular characters emerge come from a deeper part of our awareness as writers. Mm-hmm. It's like we refract ourselves into different characters so that the composite makes a whole. Mm-hmm. But as actors, sometimes I feel like we forget to go to the taproot of the whole thing and try to understand, well, why is this character actually in here? Who is he speaking for? Who has no voice? Or what aspect of this person is he speaking for? Right. That has no voice.
No, that makes sense. And right now, I have a writer friend who she's absolutely wonderful, and we're talking about doing some projects together. And since she's a book writer, mm-hmm. She started laying out all the character stuff and motivation stuff like that. And I just I don't come from a world of books. I come from a world of film. And I told her, part of the fun for actors is kind of trying to diagnose a character and go in deep with the character. So it's awesome that you have all this, but you got to leave some room for the actor to play.
Well, there always has to be room for the mystery,
whether
writing or acting or doing anything. None of us are doing anything alone, even when we're in solitude,
Yeah. No, absolutely. But I'm curious. When did you catch what came first, the writing or the acting bug?
Oh, always acting.
Acting.
But I wrote in order to act even as a kid. You're helping me realize right now, because I typed a letter to my favorite TV show when I was 5 or 6 and asked them to come on it. And that was my first acting break, but it came through writing a letter. So I think my desire in the beginning was always to be visible, and, acting, I think, filled a psychological need to not be left behind.
Right.
And then I just realized it can actually exacerbate loneliness because you may be visible but not seen.
Right.
And but acting always did come first. I think writing scared me because there's such responsibility that comes with writing. It's just you at that desk, you and your muses, whereas as an actor, you're at effect of so many collaborators.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny, you a moment ago, you said something, and I was thinking about what is this thing we call us?
Yeah.
What's the consciousness that guides our ship as human beings, as creators of any kind? Because if you look at a human body, we're made up of millions of ostensibly creatures.
Yeah. Yeah.
Within the GI tract, there are billions of probiotics and things that are causing our appetite to soar or be quenched and breaking down the food, and all of these different cells and atomic structures that have intelligence within the body. So what we call our self is what? I think it's some kind of spirit or light that animates this body bag, which has a life of its own regardless and decomposes when we're out of it anyway.
Right.
The living things within it. So what we are made of is, I think, a speck of godliness, or however you would describe that longs to reconnect with a larger sense of itself in the way that a drop of water wants to meet the ocean.
Mm-hmm.
So the act of creating, sitting at a desk to write, or hopefully after the period of rehearsal going out and doing a show, is you're edging that little water drop, that God particle, toward its larger communion. So it has a sense of homecoming.
Right.
And that's the very best for me as an actor or as a creator of any kind, is just knowing that, not just knowing I'm a part of something larger, but feeling that I am an augury of that whole. So,
yeah, we always want to be a part of something bigger than us, but there's always that need of contributing to something, whatever medium or work it is.
Yeah, Ram Dass there's a documentary about him now called Becoming Nobody, which is fascinating because in the West, so much of what we're driven toward is becoming a somebody.
Yes.
But in essence, when we stop aiming for that and aim to become part of the larger floating mellifluous spirit, whatever you want to call that thing, that's when we become most illuminated.
Mm-hmm.
And it's an amazing journey, I have to say. There's nothing greater than art to reflect back to us where we are within ourselves.
Right. And what you leave behind today can have a ripple effect through, generations, and also be a window into, this is what it was like back then.
Yeah, and also so much of that can get just washed away.
Yeah, yeah.
Especially in the maelstrom of content that's available now. I feel like our work is here and now as we impact people through our everyday dealings, whether they're on screen or stage or off. It's about how much eternity we log in the now through our presence. Because in the end, in about 100 years, none of us who are at least in my generation and probably one before, we won't be here.
Yeah.
If there's a piece of text or a piece of film or something that enlivens somebody else, it's just a link in a chain, because all of us who will then be gone were also impacted by pieces of writing that made us feel, or pieces of acting that made us feel, oh, I'm not alone in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the reason that I really started to act, is because I saw people on stage, on screen, and felt like I'm not in isolation here. Somebody not only knows how I feel, they're singing about it.
Mm-hmm.
And now, when I have young people who come up and have seen this or that I was in, and say it did it for them, it's very touching, but it's also not entirely personal, because you realize that the work of adulthood is serving insofar as you're helping people realize they're not alone. And that's the passage of your life, is helping people remember while you're here.
Exactly. And if there's one thing we can all do, it's remember more.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, look, do I have an internet podcast? Absolutely. But is it one of those things where I'm just like, man, I wish I could just go off into the woods and, I don't know, just be me and not have to worry about anything. But then I'm just like, Wi-Fi's too cool right now.
Well, you could do both, There's something called woo way woo in the East, which means action without action. So, or doobie 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 doo in the West. So you can go out into the woods and gather your inspiration, your refreshment, your clarity, and then come back and bring it to your podcast.
That's true.
I think that's no one is safe relegated to a mountaintop these days. We've got to we've got to share what we know.
Yes.
If for no other reason than to inspire others to go figure out what it is they know.
No, I agree. Honestly, this is the deepest I've ever chatted with somebody. So I appreciate. Yeah, yeah. You went there, and I was like, let's do this. Let's go there. We're going.
Well, thank you. I'm glad to. I was speaking of Wi-Fi, looking on Facebook last night, and there was a guy that I know who he passed away at 43 in his sleep. And he had a wife and I think 3 children, and there was no warning. That was just his contract. It was 43 years.
Right.
And none of us know. I think we all imagine and perhaps hope, I'll be here till I'm the ripe old age of whatever. But the point is if you and your listeners were to make a list of 3 things you had to do before your spirit left the planet, and then clear away what's in the way of those things, because that being your legacy, how would your life change? I think that a lot of us clutter our existences with distractions because we're ultimately scared of our power.
Right.
And that very power, that connection with the larger source, has a way of dissolving the ego. Because the ego, remember, functions in this or that, right or wrong, you and me. It's the binary. You'll notice that when you have the experience of great art, either witnessing it or partaking in it, or you've been in love, or you're at one with nature, you're just that, you're at one. There is no you and me, it's just we. It's a we. I think that the ego instills fear in us of dissolving that dichotomy, which keeps cluttering our lives with distractions to keep us away from doing what we ultimately dream of doing, our destiny. But it does tend to clear up the landscape of our lives when we say, these constant dramas and these particular friendships, they drain me. I don't actually need to be doing this habit anymore, because my life's work is to bring this particular formless thing into form.
Right. And
that's become my North Star more and more in the last day, week, year, minute. The title of actor transmutes into creator. I'm just an emanation of the thing that wants to create more evidence of itself in the world. And so there isn't a division between whether I'm acting or sweeping the floor or talking with a young person. I'm going to bring that same presence to bear to each of those things so that, getting an acting job doesn't become such a special occasion. It just becomes the holy work of showing up every day.
Right.
That was a mouthful.
Well, okay, so are you a person that believes our lives are predetermined or we have free will?
Interesting question. I feel like there's, when an architect hands you a blueprint and says, this is my idea of what will be on this land. Mm-hmm. Then there's flexibility within that to say, I don't actually like this land, or I don't want to build a house that looks like that. And sometimes our lives grow more or less harmonious in conjunction with how aligned we are with. It's hard to say. I don't think that there's like a hard and fast plan. I think that the map of our lives adjusts in accordance with our choices. Mm-hmm. But I also think that there are like God shots that just make themselves known, where a hard left turn is manifested and you feel like you've been yanked toward that destiny. And the best way I could answer that question is I feel like ours are lives of listening. So if we create a listening practice, which say for me would be meditation or even writing, it tells me where to go. Mm-hmm. And I do notice that when I do go that way, things feel easier and more fluid and less resistant. And when I don't go that way because I think I know better, I don't catch the elevator. I can't find a parking spot. I don't get that, So is it predetermined? I don't know. Is it collaborative? I do feel that it is. And I do feel that it's incumbent on us to answer the calls and the whispers that we're given. So it's hard to say. I think, we contain that blueprint that's part of the larger blueprint. And I've had so many coincidental experiences in my life where you can't, like literally before you and I started this conversation, a friend of mine invites me to an event this Thursday night with a guy that I just met randomly on a plane going to another part of the world 2 weeks ago. And I felt a connection with this guy, and suddenly it's like, oh, you're being invited to connect with him again.
Yeah.
So I think that there's blueprint there, and there's also my availability for it.
Yeah.
So I guess it's kind of a mixture of both. I mean, I always felt when I was born, there was a very particular plan for my life.
Yeah.
I also think there's, it didn't come the way that I thought it would come when I thought it would come, but I just try to head toward the fun and the feeling, the tingle of aliveness, because that tends to keep me more parallel with the path.
Okay. Yeah, no, I've just always felt that life is a series of opportunities that present themselves, and it's up to us to take them.
I agree. I do feel when we avoid opportunities, life comes at us a little louder.
Yeah.
Trying to get us to heed. But I think it's far more, it's just more fun when something tells us, go down that street. And then you go down that street and you're like, oh, I get it. I'm running into this person I had wanted to see. So there's maybe there's architecture to be obeyed.
Yeah.
I don't really know.
There, that's the thing about life. You will never know. In the end, we won't know.
Well, there are moments where, for me, it feels like a veil is pulled back, and there's a sense of universal, not just equanimity or justice, but clarity, where you exhale and go, oh, I get it. That's why those things didn't work out and this thing did. Yeah. Because I was being edged in another direction. And at the time I was, beating my brains out about it. But now I'm like, oh, I see. You were trying to help me get to that thing that I said that I really wanted. Yeah, again, to harken back to something like meditating. I think it's so valuable to just access a blank slate inside as often as possible and truly not know, because that makes us available to know from a deeper place.
There we go. But I guess we should talk about Transparent.
Sure.
We should talk about just a little bit. No, so I mean, you were in the musical series finale,
right?
How was that?
Well, it was amazing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I saw the show for the first time probably when the rest of the world did about 4 or 5 years ago. I felt like it was a world I wanted to be a part of and somehow would, even though I didn't know how. Talk about a map. Very slowly, the circles of myself and the show creators got closer.
Yeah.
And eventually, I was performing in New York at the time, and Jill Soloway's sister, Faith Soloway, who produces on the show and composed the musical, said, I think I actually said to her, I'm mistaken for Jay Duplass frequently, which I was. If you ever end up doing a musical of this thing, you should call me. And she wrote and said, you know, we actually are. So I started workshopping that idea, doing some concerts with them at Joe's Pub. And then eventually it came into being. So it was a bit of a fantasy come to life, particularly because I really wanted to be on a set with Jill Soloway and those actors. And that set is run in an extremely refreshing way. It's non-patriarchal. It's not based in fear or a rush to get the shot because we're running out of time, light, or money. It's a very inclusive atmosphere. And also, I was in the minority as a cis Caucasian male, and that was awesome because I'm normally in the majority in the rooms I go into, and that's why a lot of representation has gone by the wayside. So as a social experiment, it was top drawer. And, you know, it's always wonderful being part of something new and contributing to it, contributing to the storytelling and the shape of it all.
There we go. And if there's one thing I love on the podcast, it's a good horror story.
Horror?
A good horror story, yes. And there's nothing more horrific than a bad audition.
A bad audition.
So I got to ask you, do you have any bad audition stories?
I'm sure. Yeah. I think in the very beginning of my adult career, I didn't really trust that I could pull whatever emotion was required for the scene up in the middle of the scene itself. No one really explained to me that when you walk in, you're just you. You know, you're the guy they want to talk to at the craft service table, and part of the magic is just, you know, pulling that character out of your back pocket and through you when the scene starts. So I was up for it. Was actually a musical, and the character takes his life, and I was so intent on transmitting his, you know, depression.
Yeah,
I was in tears, and you know, I walked in that way.
Yeah.
When they tried to just kind of separate me from that and just say, "Hey, how's it going? What's up?" I basically told them, please wait till I'm done auditioning, and which was not the right move.
Yeah.
And so I did it. You know, I felt fine, more than fine about the acting. But when I walked out, somebody I knew who was involved said, "Are you okay?" I said, "Oh yeah, I'm great. You know, I just acted." And they're like, "Oh, because everyone thought you were really suicidal." And I'm like, oh no! So that was eggy on my face, and but hey, you know, we do these things in youth. I think one time I threw a script across the room in an anger scene, and probably shouldn't have done that. I was a teenager at the time, so go figure.
Yeah, that's always the weird thing where, people demand a lot for acting as far as diving into your emotions, but then it's like, we need you to turn on a dime, please. All right.
It's in my early 20s. It was hard because I was just looking for a place to put a lot of grief that I had swallowed as an adolescent, and I thought the prize of the day went to the one who could touch and share the grief the most. But that turned out not to be true, and I'm just glad to be older than that now.
It's it sucks getting older, sure, whatever, but it's also nice being I know stuff that I didn't know.
Thank you, Little Red.
Yeah.
Yes. No, absolutely. I think that there's an economy that overtakes, meaning you do less and obtain greater leveraged results.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't have to flail so much or chase so much. And there's a greater acceptance that what comes our way is meant for us. And what's not it passes us by. So there's more peace inside. And really, I guess that comes down to liking yourself or loving yourself. I think that particularly in the 20s, one's 20s, at least for me, there was a lot of trying to get out of this skin because I don't like being in here with myself. But now it's a deepening process, and it's like, how well can I know myself, and what motivates me and what touches me, and it becomes less of an outward show,
right,
and more of an embodiment.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I agree with you there.
By the way, where are you located?
I'm in San Antonio.
Well, hello, Texas. I'll be there in a few weeks.
Oh, well, what part?
San Marcos, which is just outside Austin.
Yeah, that's just outside San Antonio.
Oh, really? Yeah, I teach there at Texas State University, San Marcos. A little guest. Guest.
What is it? I think literally my cousin goes there.
Oh, yeah. Caitlin Hopkins runs the musical theater program. Jim Price runs playwriting. They're friends from New York. And so they bring myself and other New Yorkers in to work with their incredible college students. And it's a lot of fun.
Nice.
It is fun. Yeah.
And then, I don't know if your eating habits, but of course, getting to eat a lot of barbecue and stuff like that. That's always...
I'm afraid my barbecue days are behind me.
Yeah.
I stopped eating animal, and I remember, of course, having barbecue in Texas and also in Tennessee and other cities across the country when I was on a tour with a show.
Yeah.
Loved, tasting the local fabric cuisine.
Yeah.
But I personally don't feel it's, ethical or responsible for me anymore to contribute to that.
Well, the nice thing about, once again, getting older is that, now there's going to be like plant barbecue. So don't worry. Just hang in there.
Man. I have had seitan tacos. I have had tempeh burger. Actually, there's the Impossible Burger. If you've never tried,
it
is great.
Yeah,
there's a lot of stuff that replicates meat if you want to have that taste. And then if you're kind of not needing that taste, there's other options too. And there's some really creative chefs out there now who are making stuff that veer one's attention away from their former eating habits successfully.
For me, because I do eat meat and I have my whole life, but it's less about like, oh, this is meat. I need meat in me. It's more like, yeah, no, it's more like, does it taste good? And so when I had an Impossible Burger, I was like, yeah, this is good. I'll probably get this again. If it's good, it's good. Yeah, I don't care what it's made out of, really.
There's a guy named Adam. I've lost his last name, but he runs a restaurant and a food truck called the Cinnamon Snail, which used to come around my house on the East Coast. And he made vegan food for carnivores. So he didn't really want the college bros who would come up to the lunch truck to know they weren't eating meat.
Right.
And he converted a lot of people because I think most people just don't feel it's possible to get that satisfaction, that taste, that texture, whatever, without having the meat. And for me, it opened up a different door. Mm-hmm. Just opened up a different door because I'm always about trying something I haven't tried before and seeing what shifts it wields in my life. Sorry. Lots of texts coming in, but it's okay.
Well, yeah, no. Well, we're kind of at that point where, unfortunately, we have to stop.
No problem.
We have to stop talking. But Erik, oh my gosh, huge pleasure chatting with you. Anytime you want to come back on, just say the word. All right.
My pleasure. It's been a great joy for me too, and I should tell your listeners that if they're interested in my upcoming book, or projects that I'm doing, concerts I'm singing, where I'm teaching, whatever. I've got, I'm on the social medias at Erik Liberman. So, and it's a counterintuitive spelling. It's ErikLiberman. It's fun to interact and then to meet people who've written when I hit the towns that they live in. So thanks for the opportunity to share.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. But I'll let you go and continue writing or just
no
chilling. Just chilling.
Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.